Content warning, cannibalism, and self harm. Sometimes the best way to understand the world is through its books. In the case of Alighieri, it is through a specific collection of books. One written about surviving different parts of the world that is going through its apocalypse. One that is both sudden and slow. Some apocalypses take millennia to achieve. The lobotomized frog swimming while it boils to death, and end so gradually that people assume it is normal or inevitable. Others are as sudden as a falling brain, a death that cannot be predicted nor prevented, with very little sign, if any at all. Then there are apocalypses like Alighieri. The change from a normal world to an apocalyptic one is sudden. The actual world endures. It fights and rages against the dying of the light. But the light still dies. Worlds like Alighieri are similar to forges. The heat can harden or soften. It can make someone brittle or resilient. It can sharpen or dull. It creates the cruelest of villains or the greatest of heroes. The writer of the survival manual, Beatrice Portinari, is one of these figures. Her collection of survival tips, stories, anecdotes, theories, hopes, and dreams were collected across decades. She is especially unique because she is the only known writer after the Metamorphosis who was actually remembered the world still in its nymph state. Very little information on who she is as a person was ever collected. Introduction. I remember the world before the Metamorphosis. I remember when the trains ran on the tracks, when the planes flew in the sky. I remember when people walked along the roads. I remember many beautiful creatures, butterflies, ladybugs, catfish, cats, and even dogs that wouldn't try to eat you. I remember being able to smile at my neighbors. I remember back when the worst thing you had to worry about was a bad day at work. We had plenty of food, so much food, in fact, that there were entire cultures and subcultures that dictated what was or wasn't appropriate to eat. Some people even willingly fasted for days, believing it was healthier for them to not eat all the time than it was to eat what they could when they could. And when I say entire cultures, I mean there would be messaging about how healthy it was to avoid things like bread, potatoes, red meat, or fat. There was people who refused to eat meat or anything else from animals, or people who would only eat food that was in liquid or uncooked form. There was people who would have willingly passed up on food because we had so much food and so many different types that passing up food wasn't a probable death sentence. We had so much medicine that people refused to take some of it. Diseases that once upon a time would crush entire empires, we now had protection against it. Or illness that would rot off your genitals and swell your brain could be treated with small pills. We could even have sex without fear or pregnancy. We could masturbate without fear of infection. And still, some people refused the aid. The world was so safe from illness that people believed they could refuse medicine, believing that the illness was not a threat at all. We used to be able to get injections when we cut ourselves on rusty objects. Injections that kept us from dying. If we were bitten by a rabid animal, we had a decent chance of saving our lives with medicine. If we had black spots in our cuts, we could get treatment and kill the flesh-eating bacteria. We were able to transfer organs from the dead to the living to save lives. We were able to remove tumors, cancers, dying tissue, even reshape bodies because we didn't like how our bodies looked. All with medicine so advanced it feels like something from utopia. We used to have many different gods and many different demons. They were just stories, lessons, and histories once. God used to be something that would have power over you in the abstract or in the distant past. Demons was something you heard about in stories, feared by the ultra-religious, but for most people, they were a part of our stories, not a part of our lives. We had debates, fights, even wars over which god was the right one to follow, over what way of life was the right way to live. A world where we were unsure about the divine, and even that doubt was enough for us to fight and die over it. It seems so silly now, doesn't it? The Metamorphosis made it clear that every religion was wrong. And the thing I remember most from the days before is the sky. We used to have a sky. Now what we have is a permanent gray cover above us. It darkens at night, it lightens during the day. Otherwise, it is a monotonous bully, watching us struggle beneath it. Every day I run across more and more people who don't know the sky as anything else than what it is now. A lot of them were born into this world and don't know any better. But others are old enough to remember, but they have forgotten. Their memories of the skies of the past, now only of the skies of the present. The sky used to be blue and orange and red, even green sometimes. It was many amazing colors. We had clouds that would act like stained glass on the sky, filtering the light down to us in many different colors and shapes. We used to look up at the sky and even make shapes with the clouds above. It used to be peaceful to stare up at the sky. The clouds would sometimes turn dark or angry, and we would see the storms coming. We could see lightning in many different colors as well, sometimes yellow, sometimes white, sometimes blue, even purple on rare occasions. We used to have the sun during the day. I know you have probably seen the sun in paintings or art from the olden days. I promise you, though, they don't do justice for the sun. The sun was so bright that you couldn't look at it directly or you would harm your eyes. Days would look so different from one another. The sun would even move along the sky from east to west. During different parts of the day, the sky would be brighter or darker. When the sun finally set at the end of the day, the moon would rise. It wasn't as bright as the sun, it wasn't visible every night, but it was equally as beautiful. It changed shape from a crescent to a full circle, back to a crescent again. And behind the moon was the stars, tiny dots of light, distant suns so far away they looked tiny. We could make constellations and shapes out of those distant stars. It made so most nights had at least a little light. In some parts of the sky we could see the galaxy, a collection of stars so plentiful it looked like a cloud of light above us all. Above all, I miss the sky. This survival guide is meant to help you understand how you can best survive the many different environments and threats of Alighieri. This is a collection of tips to help me remember and to also act as something to offer other survivors that I find. It is one part manual and one part journal, but with how the world is, I don't think that people will object too much to my rambling. Before the Metamorphosis, there was entertainment that was shared that was basically rambling thoughts and experiences. We shared it through a format called the network before the Metamorphosis. But there is little point in discussing things like the network, spatial exploration, or most of the technology before Metamorphosis. You either already know it and don't need it explained, or you grew up in a world where the radio and stopwatch are the most advanced pieces of tech available and cannot comprehend something like the network. If you are asking why the world ended, what I know and what I remember is the first Gehenna opening up in the Southern Ocean. I remember the government, which is like a gang, but it ruled a territory over millions of miles and had billions of members, investigating the Gehenna. The news was that it was spewing a strange radioactive ash into the local environment, changing the life around it, and the ash was blocking out the sky. It was a curiosity then, a distant rumor that you think about sometimes, but usually it doesn't affect you. Until another Gehenna opened up near the Hellfire Islands. This time, the ash turned the residents of the islands into a mutation that science didn't have an answer for at the time. The first demons. The government tried evacuating them, but then another Gehenna opened up. Then another. Then another. By that point, each different government on Alighieri was pretty much working by itself, evacuating people where they could, sometimes building camps and settlements in places that were relatively safe from the Gehennas. Then I heard news of the collapse of the government over the radio. The speaker declared the government invalid and that it would collapse. He also told the survivors to get to a utopia if they could, because they were the last safe areas on the planet. As time passed, the Gehennas grew. The changed living things in them, and some of the mutated life, escaped into Limina, and the world became pretty much what it is now. What are the Gehennas? I don't know. How do they change living things? I know it has something to do with the radiation, which is like an energy, in the ash, and possibly in the Gehenna's light. Where is Utopia? I don't know. I have heard rumors from those traveling from the south who say it is in the north. I've heard rumors from those traveling from the north who say it's in the south. Same with the east and the west. I don't know who is wrong. I don't know who is right. Limina. Limina, named after the ancient language term for threshold or house, Limina is the land outside of the Gehennas. It is affected by Gehenna, but it is mostly normal and livable. Which brings us to our first rule of Limina. Find where the people live. Humanity's greatest trait is our ability to cooperate and build communities. We have been doing it for thousands upon thousands of years. If you are wandering or traveling through Limina and there are no people around, there is a reason for that. It may be hazardous or in an area with not enough resources to sustain people. If you can find other people, you greatly increase your odds of survival. Human beings have a lot of needs. Food, water, shelter, medicine, tools, even other humans. We are social animals, and extended isolation will drive you mad. Isolation for a time isn't too bad. Needing some alone time is also pretty healthy as well. You still need to socialize and interact with human beings in some way to stay sane. Everyone has different tolerances to isolation. I have met hermits who have lived in caves years before the metamorphosis, who are still friendly and even helpful to their fellow humans. And I have met people who are isolated from their family for just a few hours, already decide that they would eat the next person that they met. Every person is different and difficult to predict how they will act when isolated, scared, and desperate. Beyond the mental aspect, there is also the physical aspect of humanity. Even before the metamorphosis, large parts of the world was dangerous or difficult to live in. Extreme heat, extreme cold, diseases, dangerous animals and insects, the weather, the terrain, or even the air itself can be dangerous. If it is dangerous to live in, people either adapt to it, they move on, or they die. So when you find an area that seems like it'll be safe to live in, pay attention to the signs to see if humans have lived in the area that you are in. Graffiti, stacked stones, carvings or notches, or even leftover supplies can be signs that humans have lived there before. However, also pay attention to any signs that humans have been there, but have died there. I don't just mean a grave or two, or the remnants of a funeral pyre. While that is creepy, it is proof that even if someone died there, that there was living people to care for the dead. That is actually a great sign that they felt safe enough to spend the time to burn or bury their dead. However, if you find skeletons or bodies left exposed to the elements and animals, especially gathered in one place, such as around a well, in a shelter, or around a campfire, or braced against a wall, is a sign that it is somewhere unsafe to live. In my own experiences, when I have traveled through the Barrens, I found a well surrounded by an old camp. Hundreds of tents that were still barely standing. All were built around the well. There wasn't even fire pits built yet. Most of the supplies were already picked over, but the part that told me it wasn't safe to live in was the fact that there were still bodies around the well. Bodies that weren't rotten, bodies that weren't eaten by scavengers, bodies that didn't even smell like bodies. But they were all definitely dead with how the bodies looked. Whatever killed the large group of people must have been sudden. There was no panic nor pain on their faces. Only death. While I don't know what exactly caused the deaths, it could have been the well was poisoned, could have been a new contagion, I didn't know. But whatever it was dangerous, and I was nearly certain that it was from Gehenna. Radiation is a strange thing. Even exoteric radiation before metamorphosis could completely stop decay. Radiation from Gehenna was even stranger. But that isn't the only time I found settlements get completely destroyed. Once, when I was traveling through the fringes of where the Acheron met the northern forest, I found a massive path through the forest. It was carved through with hundreds of footprints through dozens of species. Human, Cambion, Nephilim, Hellhounds, Nightaxe, Nahual, even Genu tracks. All the tracks traveled in deeper into the northern forest, where I could see a distant flickering light. But I could also see that all of the tracks only led towards the light. None led away. I am a curious person, and I like to know. A part of how I am able to live as long as I have is because as I know. There's dangerous things in the world. The things we hear about is because there are survivors, and then there's things we haven't heard of because we haven't seen them yet. But there are also things out there that we don't know about because no one has survived to tell the tale. So stick to human settlements, camps, routes, and among humans where you can. Even if you don't join their group, just knowing that humans can live there makes it immediately safer for you to live nearby. Which leads us to the second rule. Observe before introducing yourself. It's easy to assume the worst about other people, especially strangers. Remember, though, you are a stranger to them as well. They are scared of you as well, and they may not want to accept you into the group without having proven yourself in some way. I advise observing the group before you make contact with them. How do they treat each other? How do they treat their children? How do they treat their women? How do they treat their elderly? How do they treat their own outsiders? Is the group diverse with multiple races and ethnicities, or is everyone white? Is anyone visibly ill? How do they get most of their food? How do they treat their weapons? How do they talk to each other? And what do they talk about? You can learn a lot from people from how they treat each other. A group that abuses members in it are likely eager to switch targets to a stranger as soon as it can. A settlement that is stratified with in and out members will almost certainly treat you like a hostile, whether or not you are a hostile. Same thing with groups that mistreat women, children, elderly, and the ill. They've already drawn their neat little circles, and they will either decide that you are not welcome into the circle, or that you need to be beaten, broken, and pitied to be accepted into the circle, either metaphorically or literally. And that is before you get to groups that are hostile towards not like them as a default. However, if you see a group that is friendly to each other, who is accepting and willing to work together, despite any differences, physical or mental, those that have defined in or out groups within their own tribe, you'll notice that they are talking about more than violence or desire for battle. If you have observed a group that seems friendly, you can introduce yourself. More often than not, they will accept you. If you want to join the community, make it that clear from the beginning. If you are traveling through, want to trade, or want to share stories, you are welcome to do so as well. Make it very clear to any prospective community that you meet that what your intentions are. They may ask for proof. They may ask you to quarantine yourself for a while. They may even ask to search you to see if you have any weapons. Be friendly and understanding. They are strangers to you, but you are strangers to them as well. It'll take time for them to trust you. You will probably notice that most tribes, groups, and communities are friendly to strangers, with violent or hostile communities being a lot rarer, and getting rarer with time. This relates back to Rule 1. When humans make an area hostile towards other humans, the other humans leave. And in time, the bullies either find someone who refuses to be a victim, or the bullies turn on themselves. This brings me to the third rule. Don't consume human flesh, nor consume what consumes human flesh. Food isn't always plentiful in Limina. That is fair. Stick to canned food where you can. If you cannot get it canned, you can scavenge or butcher it from a creature with no visible mutations. No matter how desperate you get, no matter how appetizing the flesh of your fellow humans appeals, do not consume it. You cannot stress this enough. The day the first Gehenna opened, something changed in all human flesh. I know that the taste is so good, it puts all other foods to shame. The first days of Metamorphosis, back when we had network and televisors, people shared their reviews on human flesh, and there was news of people who picked up the dark hunger for fellows' flesh. They described the flesh as better than anything else they could have dreamed possible. They talked about how savory the muscle was, how sweet the eyes and organs were, how the skin was better than chips, and how the blood was more intoxicating than alcohol. By the time the news of the consequences spread, it was estimated anywhere from 10 to 20% of the population was addicted to the flesh. We don't know what changed about human flesh, but we know it was a change in the flesh itself and not in our minds. Because the dark hunger doesn't just apply to humans that eat humans, but also towards the animals or plants that consume our flesh. Once they get a taste for humanity, they get addicted to humanity's taste. There's entire cities in Limina that humans will not approach anymore because every wild animal in the city has developed an addiction to our flesh. Cats, dogs, rats, pigeons, even the fish and flies have all developed a taste for humanity. They can survive on food other than human, but if they know there is a human among them, they will seek you out. Now imagine that dark hunger in yourself. Imagine eating the greatest meal you ever had. Now imagine that normal food now tastes like sawdust, copper, and stone. You can live off of it, but it doesn't satisfy you in any way. And the food you actually want to eat is walking out there. Imagine hungering for the flesh so much that you smell it on everyone who walks by. Imagine knowing when your friend is visiting because you can smell their blood. Imagine craving the flesh so much that even your own scent fills your every waking moment. Imagine your mouth watering every time you bleed. Imagine fantasizing about how you taste. Imagine how your teeth itch, how your blood chills, how your heart cools, and how it fills your every thought. Imagine finally giving in to your own worst impulses. Finally taking the knife that you have held a million times before, only to now realize that it is somehow both heavier and lighter at the same time. Imagine what you would be going through your mind that finally convinces you to take the blade to your own flesh. Imagine cutting at your flesh, and instead of being horrified at what you are doing to yourself, you are instead noting everything to yourself in an almost emotionless detachment. You note that the feeling stings and burns less than you expected. You notice a strange numbness in your fingers as you peel skin away from yourself. As you chew on your own raw flesh. Now, having eaten it, you wonder how you ever lived before this moment. The pain, the taboo, and any cares you have go away. All you care about is your hunger. After that first bite, pain and worry isn't even in your head anymore. Not because you don't feel the pain, but because the dark hunger is far, far worse. You will find yourself carving out more and more of your flesh, filling your maw with humanity. You may notice with dispassion and disassociation that your body is changing. Your bones extend, claws grow out of your fingertips, your hair grows sharp, and your jaw shifts to fit your new teeth. Your hair grows long and tangled as you grow less and less human. If you find a human to consume, you will do so without remorse or emotion, just satisfaction that the hunger is abated. For now. But if you cannot find others, instead you will carve away at your own flesh to control your hunger. By then you no longer walk among humanity. You are one of the Genu now. The Genu are the end result to all who consume human flesh. The virtual giants who stand 15 feet tall with long tangled hair and desperate hunger in their eyes, as their bodies grow more animalistic. At least, if they were human. If an animal consumes human flesh, they become larger and ravenous with extra hair. If the animal has hair, then their bodies shifting to become better at consuming human flesh. I have seen deer with sharp fangs, antlers of bone, and eyes that are binocular, with hooves that are more claw-like than hoof-like. I have seen rats sprout additional mouths out of their backs that bite and tear at anything close to them. I have seen seagulls grow teeth in their beaks and on their wings, both made for drawing blood from people. And whatever effect that causes human flesh to be addicting doesn't just apply to human flesh, it also applies to anything that grows from or consumes human flesh. Also carries forward the change like a toxin. So if you eat something that mutated from eating human flesh, it mutates you as well. Potentially slower, but it still causes changes. This applies through animals, plant life, and fungi. The changes in plants and fungus is more subtle. You see plants that are sharper, plants that grow best with blood and bone, and in fungus, you see fungi that grow in all the colors and textures of human flesh. Even with our best efforts, human flesh is in our food web, and it is still spreading. Do not consume human flesh, nor anything that consumes human flesh. If you have a choice, destroy it with fire or bury it deep. We cannot completely make it stop, but we cannot stop trying either. Anything that can communicate with you can lie to you. This seems to go without saying, but it is still worth sharing. Out in Limina, despite the fact that the governments, companies, corporations, and pretty much every pre-metamorphosis power out there has ended with the appearance of the Gehennas, you will still find strange people out there promising safety, supplies, or even solutions to the world's problems. While not everyone out there is lying to you, you have to keep in mind if it can communicate with you, it can lie to you. I knew someone once who heard a voice on the radio who promised that she knew where Utopia was, that all they had to do was help escort her across the Shiv Mountains. That explorer, a foolish idealist by the name of Sebastian, agreed to escort her. He collected people along the way, updating me with his journey. He told of strange creatures in the mountains, how even the weather seemed to have changed. He told of a hidden Gehenna that hid in the mountain's caves. He spoke about it as though it was alive, but he was reassured again and again by the woman he was escorting that Utopia was in the mountains above where the sky touched the mountain. The last bit of news I got from Sebastian was that there was a city built above the cloud cover, that there was still a sky out there. And I heard nothing else from him ever again. I did, however, hear the woman's voice on the radio again a few weeks later, promising to the people of Limina that she knew where Utopia was, that they just needed to help escort her up the Shiv Mountains. Or sometimes you will find pamphlets in the randomest of places in Limina, in rabbit holes, taped to mirrors, in bank vaults, on water bottles, or even just in your own pockets, without remember ever picking up the papers. The papers will tell you about a place that is outside of Alighieri, a world without danger, a world called Lockhart, and that to enter it you just need to call out the name Adansi 3 times in front of a mirror, near a tunnel, or at a crossroads. Obviously, this is fake and not worth trying, but the pamphlets are still useful paper. And then sometimes, where there is a screen that is still unbroken, you will see moving and talking pictures on it. You may see a man in a suit on the screen. He resembles what would have been a news anchor before the metamorphosis, but most people just know him as the Suit Man. If you see him on the screen, he will begin to give local news in your area. And always the news pertains to your area. Sometimes he will disclose the weather, including predictions of the weather in the near future. Sometimes he will announce where a cache of supplies can be found nearby, or about a dangerous creature that lives nearby. The trouble, though, is even though he will make announcements of what is going on in your area, some of which may address you directly, some of his announcements will also be false as well. It cannot be predicted which ones are or are not false. His face, his tone, and his body language remain the same regardless of what he is saying and whether or not he is being honest. A statistician I spoke to once said that about a 10% of the suit man's predictions are false. So that statistically he was more likely to be correct rather than incorrect. However, the things he is lying about can also be disastrous. Once he said that there would be a cache of clean water in an old nuclear power plant within where they kept the rods. The community I was staying with sent a scouting party into the power plant. They found nothing but radiation inside of the plant, contaminating everyone they came in contact with. The community was dead within weeks. I only got lucky because I left once I heard the party was coming back. So if you do hear announcements from the suit man, do bear in mind that he can be lying as well, and if you are taking action based on his predictions, you also have to prepare for the possibility that he may be lying. If he says that there are apples ready for harvest, then you better be prepared if there are no apples in the orchard. If he tells you the next week is going to be dry, you better also be prepared for rain. His predictions can be helpful. I've used them myself. But you also need to prepare that anyone who can communicate with you is capable of lying to you. Gehenna. What is a Gehenna? Areas of radioactive and volcanic activity that creates mutations within its area of effect. The name came from the pre-Metamorphosis days. It meant hell, although I heard, according to a rumor, that the name originally came from the name of a burning trash pit. Regardless, the name is accurate. The name was on the news when the first Gehenna opened in the Southern Sea. Some people used other terms, pit, Hades, inferno, no man's land, but the most common term is Gehenna. Miles before you reach the pit, you will smell rotten eggs in the air, and if you can smell the rotten eggs, then you are being exposed to at least some of the radiation from the Gehenna. As you get closer and closer to the caldera, you will see more and more mutated life. Trees that resemble twisted bones and human figures. Beings with many horns, claws, and eyes. Some of them were human at one point, others of which were never human to begin with. If you are lucky enough to reach the caldera, you can see the molten stone from beneath the crust rushing above ground. The lava will be a cascade of mesmerizing colors. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purples, even black sometimes. It will draw you in, a source of light bright like how the sun was made to be. You find the light enticing as you draw yourself closer and closer. The heat comforting. The lava looks fun to touch. The gases and radiation will cloud your mind as you step towards the lava. And finally, you try to pick up the lava in your hands. Or you decide to dive into the lava, thinking it'll flow like water. Instead, the molten rock will burn your flesh off your bones and turn your bones to ash before you get the chance to hold it in your hands. And if you were foolish enough to try and dive into the lava, you will splash on the molten stone, your flesh burning and sizzling as the water in your body sublimates and your denser bones also turn to ash, soon leaving no mark on the Gehenna that you were ever there. Your remains joining the ash and dust from the caldera and spreading hell across Alighieri. I have seen Gehennas in the forest, reducing trees to ash near the center and turning those far from the heat into bone and stone. I have seen Gehennas in the city transforming humanity into demons that now worship the caldera and who now seek others to sacrifice in the heart of the Gehenna. But I think the most terrifying Gehenna I have ever seen is in the ocean. I saw, even from miles away, as the lava beneath the waves boiled the oceans over it. I saw the oceans recede and drain into the caldera, which still burned and boiled the oceans over it, drinking up the ocean and everything that lived in the ocean in massive whirlpools that would have made Carabitus blush. I have seen titanic beasts the size of mountains drawn into the caldera. Annihilation and destruction in that Gehenna, one of many that are draining all of Alighieri's oceans. Rule 1. Avoid the Gehennas as much as possible. They are dangerous, and they change most living things that enter their affected areas. Similar to how consuming human flesh can change people into Genus, exposure to Gehennas are how we get beings like cambions and hellhounds. Monstrosities that grow horns, sharp teeth, and far stronger than they have any right to be. monstrosities that can mimic human voices trying to get people into the Gehennas. I have seen a Nephilim, a being covered in endless eyes and feathers, cry like an infant to get people to fall into its trapdoor, where it consumed them. While sometimes demons will leave Gehenna, for the most part, that is where they stay, and they try to get people into their territory. Gehennas can appear anywhere. Forests, deserts, mountains, plains, the ocean, and even in the middle of cities. Avoiding Gehennas are the best way to keep yourself alive as much as possible. Even if you avoid corruption, the radiation levels are high enough to give you cancer within only a couple of days. Or it can also alter any future children you do have. And it takes less time to permanently have mutant children than you think. Rule 2. If you have to go into a Gehenna, go with protection. If you go into a Gehenna, go in with protection. Preferably a hazardous materials suit, but if you do not have one, protect as much skin as you can. Try not to let the dust in Gehenna directly settle on your skin to avoid it triggering mutation. Any non-porous clothes will help. Rubber, waxed cotton, or leather is safest, but thick clothing can work in a pinch. Also keep your face covered as much as possible, preferably with your own contained air supply like scuba, but gas masks will work. If you have neither, cover your face with goggles and your nose and mask with thick masks to keep the dust out. If you smell rotten eggs, then you are being exposed. Try to protect yourself as well as you can with the masks. Despite what common myths say, pissing on a rag and covering your face with it will not protect you from Gehenna's dust. Also, that is really gross. Any supplies you do bring into the Gehenna will have to be watched for dust when you leave, and anything you take from the Gehenna will have to be cleaned thoroughly from dust. Clean it with water that isn't going to be drank by anyone to avoid contamination. Rule 3. If you have to go into a Gehenna, don't eat nor drink anything in there. You have no choice but have to go into the Gehenna. Make sure maybe you need to cross it, or there is a weapon or supply you need in it. Then you need to make sure you do not eat nor drink anything in the Gehenna. If you find sealed cans or bottles inside of the Gehenna, it might be safe to consume outside of the Gehenna. But the dust, radiation, and energy in the Gehenna pervades everything. Even if you don't see the dust, it is all around you. You are being exposed, even if you are in the most well-made hazardous materials suit in existence. Even if you bring in your own air supply and you don't have a single molecule of the dust touch your skin, you are being exposed and it is affecting you. Removing your mask to eat or drink anything is exposing you to a much higher dose, especially if the food or water is from inside of the Gehenna. And if you consume it, then your mutations will happen from the inside out. Imagine your stomach, intestines, heart, lungs, liver, and nerves all changing inside of you. Imagine the pain and agony of your organs shifting and chewing their way out of your body. Squirming, worming, burrowing, digging, clawing, tearing, and consuming from the inside out. Reducing yourself to a shell while the mutations inside of you dig their way out like a parasite. All while you remain alive and aware the entire time. The last part of you to change is your brain as it squeezes out of your head, crawling along the ground like a blind, deaf slug, looking for something even you do not understand. You hoping that something will destroy you before you slowly die of thirst. I have seen this happen many times, and when it starts, there is no way to stop it. Even if you are merciful enough to shoot them in the head, their organs will still turn into squirming worms that seek out more and more of the Gehenna dust to survive. And as horrifying as they are, at least they are not harmful to humans. Do not sleep with the succubi. Most demons from Gehenna can be identified fairly easily. You look for horns or claws. The hellhounds or the cambions can be deadly to people, but not more so than wolves or people. The Nephilim draw people towards them, but as long as you don't follow strange voices, you will be safe. The succubi are a demon that regularly leave Gehenna and can live or even disguise itself as a human. Some travel hundreds or even thousands of miles in search of their prey. They usually look like sexually attractive women, but some are said to look androgynous or like men. Unlike other demons, they have no horns, no claws, no tails, nor any strange growths on their body. There are only two ways to distinguish them from a normal human: the fact they don't eat and their eyes. No matter how well disguised they may be, they cannot change their eyes. Their eyes are golden, golden like the lava of their homes. And if they do find someone willing to have sex with them, the succubi are said to be better at sex than any human being can hope to be. They will exhaust their partner until they pass out. Then the succubi's skin unfolds, and you can see her true form beneath her skin. The form resembles a cross between a praying mantis and a spider, 8 long legs and 2 razor-sharp scythes for arms, fangs that are hollow and carry venom. The succubus then implants her eggs into her victim's torso, laying anywhere from 12 to 24 eggs. Eggs that hatch after a week, while the succubus leaves her victim alone. The victim, usually not knowing what is happening, just knows that they have chest pains and some additional hunger. They may get lucky near the end of the incubation period and notice the growths on their skin, maybe thinking that they are tumors or cancer, and they can try to remove it. If they try to remove it, they will release the young succubus's venom into their bodies, killing both them and the eggs instantly. The unlucky ones either don't notice it in time, or if they do, they don't try to remove it. They will be the ones who have the infant succubi eat their way out of their bodies, exposing their internal organs and blood to the outside air. After finally killing them, as the young succubi consume their meal as they grow, within a few days becoming fully grown succubi themselves, as they wander Limina looking for new partners, new hosts, and new meals. If you suspect that you have met a succubus, do not sleep with her. Look at her eyes. She may try to cover or conceal them in some way, and if they are golden, then you know what she is. Do not try to physically confront her. You will cause her to reveal her true form, and she will rip you apart. It seems the only reason that humanity hasn't gone extinct by the succubi yet is it seems they need human semen to fertilize their eggs, and that adult succubi cannot actually digest food. Their only real purpose is laying eggs until their own starvation. So if you suspect someone is a succubus, you can offer them food and see if they refuse to eat it, since succubi cannot eat. Rule 5. Don't make deals with the incubus. They charge more than you think, and they deliver less than they promise. You will not know you will speaking to an incubus until it reveals itself. It will promise you gifts. It will promise you trades. It will promise you so much. And it will ask for seemingly so little. You have to refuse. And you have to refuse each time they ask. It doesn't matter how inconsequential the object they ask for. It doesn't matter how harmless the gift they offer you. Do not make deals with them. Don't even use language that can seem like making a deal. It will hurt you more than you know. I knew a man named Farmer. He met an incubus beneath a tree near his property. The incubus promised him that it would give him a bountiful harvest if he agreed to give the incubus first choice of each season's harvest. The farmer agreed. His crops still withered, orchards dried up, and food could not be grown. The farmer's wife, Mary, got pregnant. She gave birth to octuplets, all girls. At the night of the birth, the incubus came by and asked for his first pick, taking the eldest with him. Farmer and his wife struggled. They managed to raise their other 7 children, despite the farm not growing any food, only for Mary to get pregnant again, giving birth to another set of octuplets. And again, the incubus came by for his first pick, this time taking the youngest of the set. Now realizing what horror that he agreed to, Farmer explained what happened to Mary. They realized that she would get pregnant and give birth to octuplets every year, and every year the incubus would take one of their children away. They tried to prevent pregnancy. She still got pregnant. They tried killing the incubus. He returned the next day unharmed. They tried running from it, and they tried hiding from it, and he still found them. They tried begging. They tried making a new deal, but the incubus made his deal, and he would keep collecting his fee. Finally, in desperation, and with 49 children, Mary took her own life, believing that would stop the cycle of the curse. What Mary didn't realize was the deal was with Farmer and not Mary. The day after Mary's death, Farmer found out that all of his children now had swollen stomachs from their own pregnancies. Each one, even the youngest, now carried their own octuplets. Farmer, in his desperation to get out of the incubus's deal, killed his children and then himself. Now the deal finally done, but Farmer isn't the only one who makes deals with the incubus. And quite frankly, he's one of the luckiest. Creatures like the night axe and Nahual are said to be results of incubi deals, asking for courage and power respectively. I cannot prove that is true, but I have no reason to doubt it. Creatures from Gehenna, the Cambion, what most humans become when exposed long enough to Gehenna's energy. They still look human, for the most part, but they have snake-like fangs, hooves on their feet, and small horns growing from their heads or elbows. Some even have growths, or tumors, along their bodies that may grow teeth, claws, or eyes. But those tend to be pretty rare, only occurring after decades of exposure. Despite their appearance, Cambions still retain human intelligence and human vulnerabilities. They do possess a unique ability to consume human flesh without it causing mutation. However, consuming Cambion flesh will cause extreme lethal mutations, like cancerous growths that form in a few hours, bones turning as fragile as glass, or even spontaneous combustion. For the most part, treat them as people, and they will treat you as people. Most Cambians have no hostility with humanity. A lot of them will even believe that they are the next phase of human evolution, and it is widely believed that treating humans with kindness is similar to treating children with kindness. If you run across a Cambion in Gehenna, more likely than not, they will guide you out. A succubus. A predator that disguises itself as attractive humans to try and have sex with humans before laying eggs in their bodies. The incubus. Immortal deal maker that appears completely human. It will seek to make deals with others, and those deals will cause a great deal of harm. The hellhound. A mutated dog or wolf. It has an extended snout, sharp claws, big teeth. Despite the mutations, the behavior isn't that different from the dog or wolf it was before. Like the Cambion, it is also immune to the effects of human flesh. Treat them as you would any other wild dog or wolf. The Nephilim. A rare mutation, they grow multiple eyes and feathers across their body. Like the Genu, they have developed a craving for human flesh. They are not pursuit predators, though, preferring to tempt humans towards them, either with voice mimicry, using bait, or building path funnels towards themselves. The Moloch. Horned humanoid lava monsters at the center of the Gehennas. They can stand up to 120 feet tall, and despite their terrifying appearance, they don't care about humanity and don't leave the lava, so they are not a risk to humanity. Utopia. It has been years since I've updated my survival manual, but I think I have found Utopia. The Gehennas have gotten bigger and bigger. The ocean continues to recede. Libana has shrank. We have less and less food. We have less mutation-free life. I've traveled hundreds of miles away from any familiar land to find somewhere safe for a while longer. I don't think I have many years left, but maybe there's some areas of Limina I can live until I die of natural causes. Far in the northern forest, I have found the marble and golden gates of a city that is called Utopia above the gate. It is so willed there, where is power to do that which is willed. That is what the inscription said, and inside of the gates, I can see an old city that would have been a utopia decades ago. Solar-powered homes, greenhouses, clean streets, even cars. But inside of Utopia, I see the familiar, long, messy hair of the Genu, each one of them suspicious of each other, hungry, scared, and desperate. They didn't notice me, and I trek away from Utopia. Mutation must have made its way into Utopia, and it collapsed too. Like everywhere else. Like everywhere else, it fell. Like everywhere else, it fell. Like everywhere else, it fell. It was hard enough just accepting that Utopia didn't exist, but knowing that it did exist and it turned like the rest of us, it's even harder. I've survived when many others didn't. Even with my manual, even with my tips, settlements and people have died. New Hope burned down to get rid of an infestation of succubi. There's no one left to control the blaze when it spread. Last Stop died to a cholera outbreak, the ill caring for the ill before they all succumbed. Tent City turned to Genu, and I barely escaped with my own life. It feels hopeless. I am near the campfire as I write this, and I feel like I am hallucinating or even dreaming out of grief. An old man with shadowy wings behind him and an exposed jawbone is telling me that he can take me away from Alighieri. He just asks that I share my book with him as well. I know he isn't a Nephilim. They don't show themselves willingly. He isn't an incubus, because I clearly recognize he isn't human. The deal seems simple, and I know that I'm not supposed to accept deals from others, but I also don't know how things can get worse. Maybe he'll lead me to another utopia. Maybe he will just kill me. Or maybe, just maybe, he can keep his word and he isn't lying. Do I trust him and go with him? Or do I stay behind and keep wandering? The choice is an easy one when I make it. And after it is made, I know that I have made the right choice.